Hello dear friends, I'm not an expert on Jewish Kabbalah, but I have researched it. Opinion piece, End of Evil, End of the Qlifot. The devil is in trouble. Positive timeline. The messianic era begins. The toplet bombs destroyed. Sparks of holiness are released. The dark side of the force is wakened. The Gnostics of Castille spoke about it. Most of the dark scenarios disappear. The probability of a world war decreases. Let's start. The big news in the latest Cobra Contactee report has gone unnoticed, nothing less than the end of the Qlifot. The Qlifot are shells representing impure or evil spiritual forces. When all the sparks of holiness are released, the messianic era will begin. According to Cobra, the forces of light have succeeded in clearing many exotic weapons of dark forces, and the positive timeline is now much more stable than ever before. By using Molnir technology, the forces of light have evaporated all physical and non-physical black holes around the surface of the planet, including all black holes in the auric fields and all black holes within the implants of the surface population. This has collapsed all the set tunnels, and the dark grid around the planet is no longer an embedded grid, but only a distorted grid. Without black holes, Kabbalistic black magic is much less effective, as the Qlifot no longer exist. The dark side. The dark grid is an energetic network that surrounds and controls the planet, suppressing the consciousness and the spiritual power of humankind. This grid is said to be maintained by negative entities or dark forces that seek to manipulate and control humankind through the control of information. Some believe that this grid is responsible for keeping people in a state of spiritual disconnection and limitation. Kabbalistic black magic is a form of esoteric practice that combines elements of Kabbalah, a Jewish philosophical system, with intentions and goals considered negative or malevolent. Kabbalah, in its original sense, focuses on the pursuit of divine wisdom, but Kabbalistic black magic embeds those principles and applies them in the context of manipulation and control. Kabbalistic black magic may involve the invocation of dark entities, the use of specific symbols and rituals, as well as the manipulation of energy and astral forces. These practices are supposed to enable practitioners to gain power, cause harm, influence the will of others, gain personal advantage, or carry out actions considered immoral or destructive. Definition. The word Qlifot comes from the Hebrew and means skin or husk, as well as matter or substance. The singular of this word is Qlifah or Qlifah, also sometimes called the first husk or emanation of impurity. It refers to the rulers of the hosts of evil in the universe. Qlifot is also the name given to the evil Sephirot, which are the opposite of the benevolent divine emanations. The group of Qlifot is called the Tree of Death or the Infernal Tree. The Qlifot are considered dark, negative aspects or shells that were formed at the creation of the universe. They are described as the opposites or negative counterparts of the Sephirot, which are the positive, luminous aspect of the tree of life. While the Sephirot represent divine attributes such as wisdom, mercy, and love, the Qlifot represent negative characteristics such as ignorance, cruelty, and destruction. These negative aspects, the Qlifot, are seen as forces or entities that obstruct or distort the divine light. They are seen as malevolent entities as well as obstacles or challenges to be overcome on the path to spiritual enlightenment. The tree of life is a symbolic representation of the structure of the universe and the connection between the divine and the humankind. The Qlifot, on the other hand, are represented as an embedded or shadowy tree. The Qlifot belong to the world of actions, which is the world of barks, shells, or sheaths, which are rubbish or waste emanations, corresponding to the material of earthly world, born of impure elements. The Castilian Gnostics, who are different versions of the Zohar, describe the Qlifot as the result of a necessary separation in the act of creation, so that from the Ein Sof could have come the Qlifot of the emanation of the left, that is, from the power of the unclean that is active in creation. The Zohar compares this power of evil to a shell of a tree that burns the good, called the outer tree or the tree of knowledge, from which the palaces of impurity emanate parallel to the palaces of holiness. Cleansing. According to Cobra, the forces of light have destroyed all remaining toplet bombs. This is a great victory, as the toplet bombs represented a great danger to the planet and a great barrier to planetary liberation. In the past, Cobra was naive to believe that as soon as the toplet bombs were removed, the event would happen, but the reality is much more complex. The population is far more programmed than previously believed, and much more of the etheric matrix and subquantum anomaly must be removed to safely guide the population through the event process, without scaring the key people, because at the time of the event, the basic food and energy distribution chains must remain intact. The good news is that removing all remaining obstacles will be much easier, faster, and less risky than removing the toplet bombs. The forces of light have also succeeded in completely clearing the higher mental plane of all dark entities, and have broken the hold that the dark forces had on the lower mental and astral planes. Almost all the invisibles have been eliminated. The few remaining dark entities on the astral plane are in disarray, in flight, and are no longer part of the dark network. All the lots of karma or trauma who have not been captured and taken to the galactic central sun have escaped from higher planes to the etheric and physical planes, where they still maintain control. End of evil. The end of evil is a final resolution of the ultimate elimination of evil, whether through divine intervention, spiritual transformation, or a final state of balance and harmony. It is the dissolution or overcoming of evil in the universe and in humankind's consciousness. It implies a state of harmony, love, and peace as opposed to the presence of evil. It is associated with the liberation from suffering and reunification with the divine. At some future time, evil will be eradicated and humankind will experience an existence filled with love, compassion, and unity. Evil is a temporary or illusory force that exists as a result of human free will, ignorance, or separation from the divine source. The process of spiritual growth, the search for truth, and the expansion of consciousness lead to the elimination of or transformation of evil in individual and collective experience. The victory of light is an expression that refers to the triumph of good, truth, and enlightenment over negative forces, ignorance and darkness. It implies a spiritual awakening and personal growth towards greater awareness and connection with the divine. It is associated with overcoming negativity, fear, and limitation, and accessing a state of greater love, compassion, and wisdom. It can also be understood as a metaphor for balance and harmony in the universe. It represents the belief that positive forces will ultimately prevail over negative forces, and that truth and goodness will triumph over falsehood and evil. Reset News. According to Mark Zeder, this week started with a huge amount of expectations, and the roller coaster is crazy. Most of Mark Zeder's Iraqi contacts believe that VR will be out sometime this weekend or early next week. According to Jim Wiley and David Nino Rodriguez, the dollar collapse is happening now. Zimbabwe backs digital cash with 140 kilos of gold. Despite IMF rebuke, Zimbabwe sells $40 million gold-backed digital tokens in first issue. They have another issue on 18th May. According to Financial Heresy, the money supply is contracting again and shrinking faster than it has since the Great Depression. According to the X22 report, inflation is worsening around the world. Food prices in the UK skyrocketed and Argentina's interest rates are now at 97%. Central banking is in panic over the debt ceiling. Debt ceiling panic and deep stats preparing for chaos, according to the X22 report. The shrinking debt ceiling window has markets on edge. Banks face regulatory scrutiny over interest rate risks. Regional banks may emerge as winners in the debt showdown, says State Street. Bank regulators are open to mergers, but promise stricter rules. On Tuesday, 16th May, Jupiter entered Taurus for a year until 25th May 2024. Jupiter, the planet of expansion, growth, lack and abundance in Taurus, enhances earthly matters of comfort and stability, finance, resources and values, according to Meg Benedict. Europe. European gas plunges in biggest drop in 4 months and is at 2021 lows. G7 and the EU seek to ban the reopening of Russian pipelines. Italy's government debt hits another record high in March. Norway hires US personnel in the absence of F-35 mechanics. The UK and Switzerland announced the start of negotiations of a new free trade agreement. Brussels raises Spain's growth forecast for 2023 to 1.9% and reduces inflation to 4%. China will become the fastest growing economy in 2023, says the European Commission. Its GDP is expected to grow by 5.5% this year and 4.7% by 2024. Top Chinese general warns of a new hybrid war. General Wang Haiyang says China faces containment from Western countries that could escalate at any time. China's plan would be the only option for resolving the Ukrainian conflict. China sells its US Treasury debt and accumulates gold in the midst of the de-dollarization. USA. Wall Street rallies as fears of default grow. The US could lose its leadership in the world if it does not pay its debts. If there is no agreement on the debt ceiling in early June, stocks would plummet, the economy would collapse and Social Security payments would not come out, writes Michael Snyder. The US buys $1 billion worth of Russian-enriched uranium despite sanctions. Donald Trump promises to release all JFK assassination files if re-elected. Americas. AMLO announces salary increase for Mexico's teachers. Argentina's central bank raises benchmark interest rate to 97%. Argentina to reactivate the world's largest heavy water production plant. Peronists win elections in 4 provinces in Argentina. Renfe aligns with Chile for the sale of material and future operations in the country. Cuba calls for coordinated action to confront the world economic crisis. Maduro says Venezuela must join the de-dollarization of the world. Brazil tries to prevent an anti-Russian statement at the G7 summit in Hiroshima. Honduras will begin negotiations to sign a free trade agreement with China. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.